And how many of you are familiar with mental skills or sports psychology? I want to ask you guys, like, how much of your training is mental versus physical, and how much of your racing is mental versus physical?
25 mental.
Mm-hmm. And what's the rest?
75.
75 physical, okay. All right. Maybe there's another category.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, yeah, anybody else? What do you think? Like 50-50? Is it like, I know some football players like, it's 85 mental. Like, and then, okay.
I think the racing definitely is more mental than the training is, which is, as soon as you said that, it's like, duh.
Yeah.
Why are we not training the mental aspect
as
much when it's as bigger factor, as big, probably 50-50 when you're racing.
Yeah. And what is that? Like each year, like we might be able to increase our FTP like 10%, maybe, depending on where you are.
I know. Yeah.
Wow.
Sign me up.
Teach us those secrets.
Depending on
until physiology is not
but
your
I'm saying from the beginning of the season to the end, right? Not like year to year. You're not going to see you can't see that incremental gain like every year, right? And as you get better, it gets smaller, right? So now that we have that cleared up, but why aren't we going back to that mental training? So it's 10%, right? So what are we doing? Do we have a process? And do we have that? So does anybody have a process that you use currently? A little bit. So when I say the word mentally tough, what does that mean to you guys?
I feel like perseverance, like not quitting when it sucks.
Perseverance, not quitting. What else?
How you respond to adversity.
So adversity being like in a race or training or like an event or just
like coping skills, being able to cope well with something that doesn't go exactly how you want it to go.
Okay. Anybody else?
When it hurts, push.
When it hurts, push. Okay.
It's temporary.
So yeah. So it's temporary. We all have like this working definition of mental toughness, right? And we all know like what mental toughness is. We have this somewhat of an idea of what we should be doing, but so we know we need it, and we know what it is, but how do we get there? Yep. So I would say, I hear people that are like, yeah, I'm going to go do some mental toughness training, 3 hours in the cold, in the rain, and that's where I'm going to go, right? And does it work? Maybe. Like, I don't know.
It could
I've done it.
Everyone's different.
Yeah, everybody's different, right? Is there a process? Is it deliberate? Do you have those skills? Like, does it make you more tired? Does it make you less tired? But I like to think of mental skills as like the ability to shift your thoughts and shift your focus into the present now. Like you're being focused right then, right now, what you're doing. To have that mental clarity of being in the lane, like being in that pack. So, because if you go too far to the left, you run into things. If you go too far to the right, you run into things, just like a race, right? So you need to be able to shift it back and forth. So what's our process to do that? And that's what mental skills does. So you have to have that clarity to shift back. So think back to your best performance this past year. Just think about it. Like maybe it was a race, maybe it was a training day, maybe it was a really quality workout, it was a ride. And think back to what you were thinking about. Anybody?
State road race. I took 8th. He took 3rd. 8th should have been 4th, but Wiley was up the road. But I went to attack off the right.
Mm-hmm.
We were maybe a half mile from the finish. You were just off the front chasing Tim, who was chasing Wiley. I went to move out of the group and I was blocked because I remember thinking, no one's doing anything. No one's attacking.
Yeah.
Everyone's looking at each other and everyone's doing nothing. So I'm just going to try and go. And when I went, someone cut me off. And I was like, well, all right, I'll try again.
Mm-hmm.
Then the road started getting bad. Then we were across the line.
So what was like the thought process going on there? Remember the actual thought that you had to get that where you are?
It was a recognized opportunity.
Recognized opportunity. You saw the opportunity, you took it. Anybody else?
I tried to do it.
Well, you did. You guys did well.
either get blocked or break the center line rule and get yelled at. Oh, look, that did happen. I did get yelled at for that.
So think back to that performance though, like, and then really think about what you were thinking about. Like, we have those. He knew what he was thinking about. He was thinking like, this is an opportunity. I'm going to take it. Where else is that?
Gateway Cup, Benton Park and avoiding wrecks.
Mm-hmm.
Last lap.
And being done, making it 4 races without
Okay.
going down. So there's those small things.
So
Be
you
done with this weekend. I made
right.
it.
You made it through. Like, and how did you feel though? You were just like, yeah, this is good, right? I guess
Decent place,
Yeah.
not involved in wrecks,
Mm-hmm.
and completed the weekend.
Sometimes that's all. You know.
I don't aim high.
Yeah. Okay. What about another performance?
Yeah, that was the big
The
one.
podium. Yeah. Anybody else want to share their process?
Zach, what were you thinking? What were you thinking at
Grove.
Grove?
Just keep going.
Just
I
keep going.
felt like Dory from Finding Nemo, just keep going. Like, I don't know. Initially, it was I just saw an opportunity and never thought that I was going to stick a break, and then as
You had
a
a
certain
kick-ass team
gap
behind you
widened, I was
controlling
just like,
everything.
okay, well, I'll just keep it going. I trust my teammates. If this works, it works. If it doesn't, well, then someone else will go in after me. So as it got closer and closer, I was just like, just one more lap or just 2 more laps, and I can see the end in sight. I know at one point I did have a thought of like, well, what if they're getting close to catching me? Should I slow up? And like, I was just like, no, my team knows enough, and if they're coming at me, then someone else will lead out. And it was just like, just keep going.
So you had that clarity, right? Like you had he had the opportunity. You had the you saw the clarity. You said just keep going, and that's what brought you to the present now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
Yeah, I was like, okay, this suffers, but I'm going to embrace the suck. So
Yeah. So you have that clarity of what's going on, and so we know that thoughts impact performance, right? But what can we control in our performances? So, you know, we go to the race. You know, you're at the race. What are you controlling for before the race? And what can you not control?
Weather.
Can't control the weather, right? Unless you're the weatherman. Even then, he doesn't do much, does he? Anybody else?
Just try to eliminate like outside, take care of all the things. Make sure you've got all your stuff so you're not
Yeah.
you know what I mean, stressing out, looking more, oh, did I forget my helmet or my shoes? Like, we just try to have a system down, you know what I mean? So that it's like,
Try to zero out the peripheral.
yeah,
Like,
like keep, just
Yeah.
keep your
Eliminate
D2
distractions. Yeah. Have those. Like you have that routine, right? Like you know your routine. Like
Right.
an hour before the race, you have that routine.
when you're going to eat,
Yeah.
when you're going to, how early you're going to get there, when you're going to start warming up, blah, blah, blah.
Even like 3 days before the race, there's a routine, right? So you're
I like
controlling-
using like the same
What's that?
paper. Like I made a template of a pre-race like packing list. That way I can physically check stuff off, and like I don't even have to think about it because it's the same list for every race.
Yeah. Especially for the longer races.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Like she
those-
plans out her nutrition, like
Mhm.
she'll have
Yeah.
like on paper,
Obsessive spreadsheets
how
of
many,
mileage
like,
and
how
calories.
many, like, what time intervals I'm gonna eat this at this time, I'm gonna eat this time.
When you're going to add lights if it's long, and
Mhm.
Yeah.
So we know like you have that routine and you have those routines, and then we know that words like the thoughts that we have impact our performance. What else are we controlling for during the race, or not? What can we not control? I should say.
you can't control other people.
Other people, anything else,
Especially
especially juniors. You said. This is true. What else can you not control in the
You
race?
can't control the course. The course is what it is.
Potholes. It might be an off-road course, and there's a tree. You can plant that.
traffic beforehand.
Yeah. Yeah, or traffic during, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Even on a crit.
Yeah.
Right? You don't see too much in the mountain bike, so we'll see. What else can you not control?
Mechanicals.
Mechanical. So Yeah, I think that's a big one, right? Because we all have mechanical happens. What do we do?
Get down.
Panic.
Start freaking
Exactly.
out.
So yeah,
This race is over. There's not much.
what's our thought process surrounding that? You know? Have we thought about that?
Don't chase.
Yeah.
The free lap.
So we've established that thoughts like matter, right? We've established that we have to control what we can and leave the rest to, you know, the weatherman and whoever else is in the race, the juniors, right, that are coming into our wheel. So we have to leave it to them. So we've established that we have to control what we can and let go of what we cannot. So another thing that we want to introduce is like a foundational mental skill is on that second page of your packet, that optimism. So you guys have probably heard optimistic thoughts. You know, what's your initial reaction when you hear the word optimism?
Glass half full.
Glass half full. Okay. Yeah.
Look for the good.
Look for the good. Yeah. So optimism is at the core of our performance. So if you go up to the start line and you have the thought, we'll see how it goes. How does it go?
But like that.
Man, you still all win,
Eighth
right?
place at Benton.
What's that?
Eighth place at Benton.
Stop it.
Yeah, I mean, but you might get eighth place, you might not, right? It's kind of up to fate. We're not really doing much. But if we say to the race, you know, there's a real good opportunity for me today, and I'm going to go after it. How does that look different, right? That's going to be a lot more deliberate. So we know that optimism builds your ability to perform. But how do we build optimism? Because that's like, can you build optimistic thinking style? And you can. Short answer. So what I have here is that's finding 3 good things. So Martin Seligman, he's a researcher, and he's a researcher from University of Pennsylvania. And in 1989 and I was 2, so I wasn't around. But he went out and went to UC Berkeley with the swim coach, and they kind of played a trick on the swimmers. They said, hey, like, the Martin Seligman approached the UC Berkeley coach. He said, hey, I want to see who's optimistic and who's pessimistic on your team. And they did a nasty trick. They said they actually told the swimmers that they swam slower times than they actually did. So think about it. You did it all. You went all out for a minute, and then you got like 59 seconds. You might have been your PR, right? And then they tell you, oh, you actually swam 1:03. And the swimmer, thinking in their head, they're thinking, no, I swam 4 strokes down, you know, and then 4 strokes back, however many strokes it took them. And then they're thinking, that just doesn't make sense. Like, so the optimistic thinker is thinking, that doesn't make sense. What's going on? But the pessimistic swimmer is thinking, my shoulder was kind of hurting last night, and I'm kind of feeling that, right? But the optimistic thinker went back in the pool and said, that's not right. I know that I can do better, right? But the pessimistic person was like, yeah, that was me. Like, shoulder hurts. Like, that's good. Like, I'll call it a day. You know what? I should go ice my shoulder. That's what I should go do because it's really bothering me. So the pessimist is going to be naturally going to gravitate towards the negative, the excuses, like the excuses that you get, like, oh, you know, it was my wheel, like, I did that, my brakes might have been rubbing, like, there's all different things, right? The optimist is like, well, that was just that day, right? So it's not, optimism really isn't positive thinking, it's actually like non-negative thinking. So it's not just like, oh, I'm in the sky, but it's actually, you know, you're avoiding that non-negative stuff. You're not letting that in. You're just thinking, what can I do to get better? So what Martin Seligman did, he's researched this a lot for the past 3 decades. And he looked and said, what can we do to build optimism? So how do we build it at its core? So what he said was, you find 3 good things that happen that day. So it can be anything. It can be little, it can be small. And you reflect on those 3 good things. So the first question being, why did this good thing happen to me? So you find a good thing. Like, I taught a class this morning, an adaptive PE teacher, and the class went really well this morning. You know, I brought my energy, and it was great. The kids really enjoyed it. And that was my good thing that happened today. And then I'm thinking, why did this good thing happen to me today? and I'm reflecting on it and trying to build it for tomorrow because I want to replicate this good thing and make it happen again. So I'm thinking, well, this good thing happened to me because I brought my energy, and then how can I replicate this tomorrow? I'm going to bring my energy tomorrow, right? I'm going to do that little thing. And then I'm thinking, all right, well, how did others contribute to this? Because that's another reflection question on there. And how did others contribute? Well, I went in early, I talked to the teachers, saw what we were going to do, and then really made an effort to really have my students really be engaged in what we're doing. And so I'm reflecting on all these things, and I'm building optimism, thinking, what can I do today and tomorrow and the next week to build that? So building that into your routine, so you can do that with cycling. How did my workout go? What went well about my workout? What can I do better tomorrow that I can do? How can I replicate that tomorrow? So thinking back, so that's going to be building that optimistic thinking style towards cycling. So think back, take a second, actually think about it, and think, maybe it was you didn't have a workout, maybe it was something else, right? Maybe it was something that you can do. But think about your last workout or something that happened, and then actually reflect on it. Anybody like to share it? It's not easy. So the quicker we can do it, so it's okay if you can't think of something right away, because the quicker we can do it, we need to build that muscle, right? We need to be reflective on our thinking so we can think about the good things that are happening. So the longer it takes us, we can shorten that window by actually thinking, like, hey, what can I do? Like, I can do this more often, and then I'm going to build that muscle, right? So it doesn't really matter if it takes longer or shorter. We need to be thinking about what we're thinking about, right? So did anybody think of something that they thought of?
I was trying to think about something good about my last ride, which was yesterday, and I can't because it was cold. It was icy, and my toes are cold, my fingers are cold, and I'm like trying to think about something good from it. The sun was out, but that was it. That was like literally the only positive thing.
But did you get out there, right?
I was outside, yes.
Okay, you got out there. You did the ride.
I did it. Okay, yeah, I did it.
You did the workout, even though it sucked.
Yeah,
right?
And I didn't want to at all. Like,
right?
Yeah, I just wanted to stay home and watch Netflix.
Yeah, exactly. So like, it's about the non-negative, right? So that's because it can be big or small. It doesn't have to be like this monumental breakthrough workout ride. Because most of my rides really just, flat out, like it hurts. Like I'm not feeling great all the time. Like you're inside. So typically, like I really have to try on this with my workouts because when you're riding inside, it's not that great. But you have to take something from it, right? So you got out there, you did the work, you did the intervals, you did all of those things, you did the necessary steps, and then what did I do so others can contribute? So you have to think like, how did others contribute to this? And then how did I contribute? How can I replicate this for tomorrow, right? So those are the things that we have to do to build that optimism. And yeah, it does kind of like suck right now, riding inside, riding in the cold. We're in the Midwest, we can't change that, right? Uncontrollable.
At least we have smart trainers.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah, 10 years ago, we didn't have that.
If you knew you're going to do this every day, mentally, you're going to be thinking about looking for the good stuff too, right? So that's going to be more in your mind than the negative stuff because you're going to say, hey, I got to write 3 things down tonight.
I better
I'm
find
going to
them.
keep thinking like it's going to be on my mind all day.
Yeah.
So I used to train resilience for soldiers, and every morning we had to come in and share like our good things. So I'm thinking like, what did I do? Did I eat right today? What did I do? Because I'm looking for the little things. So we taught this resilience curriculum, and this was part of it. And I took that and applied it to cycling, right? And so I'm thinking like, how can I do that? Because we did exactly that. Because they're like, you need to find 1 or 2 good things, share it, and then actually say it to everybody else. So we're like, I got to do this, right? So that's a good point. But I want to introduce the next concept, and that's the thought-performance connection. So we've talked about how thoughts matter, what optimistic thinking is, what we can do, the controllable, the non-controllable. And this is, if you take anything away, this is what I want you guys to take away today. And the big reveal, right? Yeah, I drew this earlier, so extra tips. So this is the thought performance connection. So we have a thought, and then it can be a thought about, and it's basically saying that your thoughts impact your performance. And there's some stuff over here that happens when we have thoughts. And this is an oversimplified version of some cognitive behavioral therapy. So it's oversimplified, but it's directly for performance. So we know our thoughts impact our performance, but what's this in the middle, right? So when we have the thought of, it sucks, it's raining outside, or like, this trainer workout's gonna suck, how are we gonna feel, right? We're gonna have feelings and emotions attached to those thoughts. So that happens like instantaneously, the thought and the feeling, like it can be as fast as that. And then you also have that physical state attached to that. So when we're feeling anxious, right, we have that tension, we have muscle tension, we have, if you're feeling aggression, you have tension. And if we're feeling sad and withdrawn, we're going to be more reserved, reflective. So it's going to have impact our performance. So that's like, if you can think about what you're thinking about when your effort's low, then we can actually we can make some changes. Because that's the first part, is awareness of our thoughts. Because that's what we need to think about when that's going in. And that's going to be the basic premise of what we're talking about today. And so while you're thinking about it, so if we go back to when you said, what was your thought when you were in that race?
Just keep going.
Just keep going. How'd that make you feel?
It's like, it was also like, well, I can do this, and if I can't, well, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I was just like, I believed that I could do it, and I was like, it sucks during it, but you know what? It'll be over soon.
Mm-hmm.
But you wanted it too.
I did want to.
Yeah. So how'd that thought impact your performance?
It was just like an ongoing cycle of, this sucks, but I'm riding a bike, and if I do this, it's pretty awesome, and I will do it because I can.
Mm-hmm.
It also, I don't know. I think it helped. I didn't have a power meter that day, and I wasn't looking at numbers. I was just like, I can do this, and I feel good. And it doesn't feel good necessarily, but I feel good because I'm enjoying riding a bike.
Can't beat that, right?
Yeah, not really.
Yeah, so it impacts your performance.
Oh, yeah.
So that's going to be, I'm going to base this premise off the next thing. So if you guys look in your packets, there's you have the thought performance connection to take home. And then if you go 2 pages, you'll see one that says growth mindset. So I want to introduce the concept of growth and fixed mindset. So growth mindset meaning that you, essentially that you have your thinking is that you have the ability and skill to actually improve. So growth mindset being that I'm currently not a great time trialer, and I think I have the ability to improve that. Rather than a fixed mindset being like, nope, not me, not my physiology, can't do it, right? It's not me. So, and it's important to identify growth and fixed mindset because we can have a growth mindset in one area and a fixed mindset in another area. So it doesn't matter if it's like, it could be like, we could be super growth in cycling, but maybe we're fixed in, in math, or maybe it's like in another area that's unrelated to cycling. So we need to understand that we have the ability to get better and increase our gains. So this is something that's kind of a foundational skill within performance psychology. How many of you are familiar with that concept of performance, or the fixed mindset? And it's work done by Carol Dweck. And I like her analogy. She said, if you attach the word yet to something, so she said, I can't do that. And if you say that, that's fixed, right? But if you say, I can't do that yet, then it's like, well, actually, there is something there. There's some growth there, right? I have the ability, I have the capacity to do it. And so the things on the right for growth mindset, those are the things that those are the traits, that embrace challenge. You persist in the face of setbacks. So you see effort as the key to mastery. You learn from criticism, because that's hard, right? When we're criticized, we have to learn from it and grow. And then you feel inspired by others. So On the left, you have that avoid challenges. Yeah, all the things listed on the left. You give up easily in the face of setbacks. See effort as worthless. You think you're smart, and then I don't have to do the work. I'm smart. Like, no, you got to actually do the work. You got to read the material. It's only going to take you so far, right? If you have the actual ability. And before we get too much into this, because you could have a whole hour on this, because it's a pretty deep topic. But just knowing that we can have the ability, if we think right now that my thinking is this way. And this is a good one to understand for optimism, because optimistic and pessimistic thinking styles fall in a continuum. So thinking that continuum, the bell-shaped curve, right? So we have the ability to shift over to the right. So being that if we're over here on the pessimistic side, we have that ability to shift over to the right to more optimistic thinking style. And so Martin Seligman, he would self-admit that he was more of a pessimistic thinker, but his ability to do the research and find 3 good things and think about what he's thinking about, right? Because he knows he's going to be asked later and think about that. So he's identifying those things. So having that growth mindset through optimism. And that's where that connection comes in. And it's a foundational piece within any type of principle where you can apply growth. So back to our thoughts, right? Because we want to get back to our thoughts, because that's what our premise is going to be on today. How many are familiar with the self-talk? So self-talk is what you're doing to yourself right now, right? You're thinking, yeah, I'm familiar with that. Like, oh, okay, no, I'm not. Like, maybe that's not it. But like, that's our self-talk, right? It's our thoughts. So we're not really, we're going to be more focused on our thoughts rather than our self-talk, because self-talk is just anything that we say to ourselves. It can be noise or it can be really purposeful. So we have to really direct it. And when we have, so if you guys go to that next sheet, the timing matters. So, and thoughts, the timing of your thoughts matter. So when we're thinking of instructional cues and behaviors, so we have to think about how thoughts impact our performance. And this is going to be before, during, and after. So we're going to come back to this sheet. But what I really want you guys to get in is that next page, the P3 thinking and statements. So P3 thinking. So it's purposeful, productive, and possibilities. So I have, and this is important. This is probably the most important piece, because P3 thinking doesn't always necessarily work unless it's meaningful to you. So it doesn't work unless it's meaningful to you. I have a philosophy. My philosophy is every day is the day. So I have my P3 thinking is every day, right? It's meaningful to me. And my actual philosophy is every day is the day to be the best version of myself. So I know what it means. It's very meaningful to me. So that's my actual statement that I say when I'm in that funk and I need to get back on track. I say every day. Is it? I have it has a certain meaning to me. So when I insert that thought, that P3 statement in my thought, I have a certain feeling that I get. I can't really, I don't know how to describe it. It's like a jolt, really, if you will. And then your performance goes up. So if I have these negative, counterproductive thoughts in that today's not my day, well, I say every day, things like that. So take a second and think, like, do I have something that I say to myself? If not, should I establish that? And it has to be. What's that?
What?
But I know what Amanda's is.
What is it?
HTFU.
Oh.
That she's got on her stem cap on her.
We both do on all of them.
Yeah. So that's a good one. HTFU. Look it up if you don't know.
It doesn't mean
Rule number 5.
Yeah. So, do you guys have anything like that? I know Amanda does, right? That's what we all established. Even though if that might not be hers, so I won't put that on. But think about it. Do you have one? And if not, I challenge you guys to think of one, because inherently Nike has one. Just do it. But if you take Nike and apply it, just do it. That didn't work. right? Like, that was unsuccessful. So it has to be meaningful to you. And I'm not going to put you guys on the spot to create them right now, because that's going to be like, well, I'm going to have to think about my philosophy, who I am as a person, and then create a statement that says, so we're not going to go into that right now. Just introduce it and know that you can insert it when we're going back in. But go to that next page, because that's where it really gets into it. So we want to establish cues, because I don't know if my computer's so cool. Our motor cortex, right, it can't really communicate with us. So we can't really communicate with the motor side of the body. We have mirror neurons, and our mirror neurons are like, if I show you a movement like that, you can do the movement right away. But if I were to say, okay, now move your arm like this, okay, put your arm down. I work with students with an intellectual disability. So, and my students, I say, well, I'll oversimplify it. I say ball, hit, and they get it. They can do that. And I show them exactly what I'm doing. And when we try to communicate to ourselves, that's the same way we have to communicate, because we need to oversimplify the cue to actually make it to what it is. So it doesn't matter who you are, where you are, but if we're having really clear and understanding directions, then we can communicate to that motor side. So identify your cues. That WIN statement, what's important now? So what's important now? So that's going to be our identifier. So that's going to track us where we need to go, right? If we're thinking over here and we need to interrupt our talking, like we need to say, what's important now? Boom, okay, I need to refocus. So, and then establish cues, right? So we need to establish the cues. So we need to have that what's important now. We need to develop our awareness with what's important now. Come back to the cue. So the cue being these boxes down here, instruction. So if we want an instructional cue, we use pedal circles, right? Like get the smoothness out. If we want physical action, and it should say B cues. My printer didn't go out. So it should have B cues. On the other side it says do cues. So our B cues being that, it's something that you're doing or something that you want to have. It's do and then B. So do cues and then B cues. So do pedal circles. So that's something that you want to do. And then physical action, smooth, right? A pedal stroke, you want a smooth pedal stroke. And then technique, if you're going through a corner and you're on the road cycling, you put your foot down, right, on the outside foot, and then you put the pressure on. So that's going to get you the cue that you need during the corner. And why this works, so let's say you're having a thought, and your thought is, so you're going 30 miles an hour, and you're going into a corner, and you're thinking, this is way too hot. Like you're going in the corner, it's like this is going to be fun. Like I'm going into this downhill in the rain, and you're going in. So we've all been there, right? And you're going down, and you're thinking like this isn't going to end well, right? Like, and then you're thinking, no, what's important now? Foot down. And then you're in the moment. You put your foot down. Oh, I'm through the corner, right? So you're oversimplifying that cue word, but you refocus where you need to be. So now your foot's down, and we're just in the moment. So it can be like balance. Maybe you put your chest down. It can be chest down. If you're on the road bike, you want to make sure the actual weight's distributed on the bars. So there's little things that you can do, but we need to learn how to identify those cue words. So we do have those distracting thoughts, right? And then it's like, oh crap, like this isn't going to be a good corner for me. Or like, man, I just crashed last race, this isn't going well. Like, then you have that anxiety and it's a cycle, and then you refocus with what's important now, and then foot down or be smooth, things like that. So that's when we know we have an actual, an event, a skill that we need. But the actual B cues on the other side to the right, B cues are more like, be calm, intensification, go all in, attitude, you need to be aggressive. So those are going to be something that you need to be. So maybe your energy state isn't quite on point. Maybe it's a little bit off, and or maybe it's too high. If and so we can manipulate our energy state. It's kind of the last topic that we're going to introduce. So, being that you have an energy state, so we're going to come back to the cues on this. So this is your individual zone of optimal functioning. So we want to be in the green, right? Green looks good, it means go, and that's where we want to be. So yellow, so if we're over here, energy activation is on the bottom, and energy activation being on the bottom, and then your performance on the horizontal axis. So essentially, we want to be in the middle, right? You want your energy activation to be at, and your performance to be at an all-time high. So nobody wants a performance over here in the low energy, or just like way too much energy and like a really bad performance, right? Like that's not going to be good. So if you think like this is like sedated, this is like calm, like all the way over here at the 0, and this is like you're shaking, like like road rage, right? Yeah, that's like I don't know what I'm doing with my hands. So you're over there. So that's the road rage. But so this component being that it's individualistic, right? So if one person, and it's task specific, right? And you have to do it regardless of the conditions. And I'll get into this. So individualistic, meaning that, one person, they might go to a crit race, right? We've all been to a crit race, yeah. And you're going in, and you might need to actually be calmed down before the crit. And you're like, man, like, this is going to be crazy. Like, and others are going to be like, no, I need more energy. So they're coming in like, oh man, like, I've got to do this today. Like they need to ramp it up a little bit, right? You need to get your energy level up a little bit to be in the optimal performance. And same with training though too. We need to find that zone and then be able to manipulate our zone to get where we need to get. So we can do this, but we need to understand the process first because it gets individualistic. So one person is not going to be the same as the other, and then it's task specific. So being that maybe a road race. We've got this over here. So being that a road race, you might find yourself over here, right? Your energy activation is lower for a road race because it's a longer race. You don't want to exert too much energy before the race, so maybe it's over there. But maybe a crit is way over here. You need to be amped up, right? Because it's going to get real quick. And
that's a cyclocross race.
Yeah, or a cyclocross race, or a Zwift race. You guys, Zwifters. I don't do that. Too much. But so it could be anything over there. So it's very individualistic and task dependent. So being that if you're taking an assessment, right, like an actual written exam, what's your energy level? Over here, right? Yeah. But should it be way over here? No. Like we're going to be off the charts. We're over here. So it's individualistic and task dependent. And then regardless of the conditions, we need to have our energy. So I heard somebody talking about racing in the rain. I was like, oh, that's going to be good to bring up later. And somebody was talking about racing in the rain earlier. And they were saying, like, you need to race in the rain. And racing in the rain is fun. And you need to do this. And that's, yes, right. So we need to be able to perform regardless of the conditions. But we also need our energy level to be there regardless of the conditions. Because how many of us are like, and I'm not talking about training. Well, training too. But performance, so racing. So if we're going into the race and being like kind of apathetic, you're like, oh man, like this is going to be what it is. Like, how's your energy level going to be if it's going to be like an actual time trial crit, something like that? Well, I've never seen anybody get super fired up for the rain, so I don't know. Maybe some people do. Yeah, I didn't think so. But so. Going back to the cues. So I want to go back to the cues because the cue words are going to be what we actually get out of this because that's going to be the most important part of this whole process is learning how to manipulate this because that's what we want to do, right? We don't want to just be like regardless of the conditions, we can't control it. This is controllable. We understand that. So we need to insert our thoughts, right? We need to insert our thought in order to control how we feel and how we perform. So going back to the cue words, so if I'm super intense, and I'm like anxious, and I'm, if you're doing if it's a crit race, it's let's say state championship, and you're super anxious, right? Like you have anxiety, it's like then an hour before, and you kind of tell you're shaking. Well, we need to calm down, right? Like, I think we could all agree, like that's probably not a good state to be in, shaking before a race. So having that composure, saying be calm, and having that cue word actually, and then you're like, oh, okay, well, I need to insert that thought, right? It's down here now. I insert that thought, and then we're going to have an emotional and physical state change, and then your performance is going to inherently go up. So that's one way we can do it. But we also need to be able to control our breathing and things like that. We'll get there. But so we need, and it could be an intensification too. So going all in. So maybe you actually are way over here on the left side, and you're like, man, I need to go all in today. I need to go right now, right here, today. Maybe that's where you need to be. So we can control our actual how we manipulate our energy with those cue words. So going back, if you go 2 pages up to the deliberate breathing. So I'm just going to introduce this concept. How many are familiar with deliberate breathing? So deliberate breathing being that if you guys all put one hand on your stomach and one hand on your chest. So everybody take a deep breath. And take it in and then let it out. Okay, now I want you to do it for 5 seconds. Take a deep breath and try to lift your bottom hand up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now hold. And then exhale for 2, 3, 4, 5. Then inhale for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale for 2, 3, 4, 5. You guys feel a difference? You can definitely feel there's definitely some calmer energy, less tension. So it's we can manipulate this, right? If we're over here, we're able to control that, regardless of the conditions too. We can be anywhere, doing any time, and we can control our breathing, right? As you're going all in an effort, so we can control that. We have control over that. So that's an energy state. We know we can control our thoughts, and we know we can control our attention too. So our attention can be controlled by cue words. Our energy can be controlled by deep breathing, cue words that we can put in. So those are we can actually manipulate all those 3 things and control our energy states if we're going into a race and how we're performing in that race. But it's not going to be just going to this tonight and then being like, well, I got it. Good. Right? I'm done. Hands down. Chris told me it's the work that we do, right? And that's where I told you guys the pre, during, and post. If you go back to like 3 pages, it says, and that's where we need to look at, because that's going to be how we determine what we need to do and when. So being that before, during, and after. Before, we plan, we anticipate, we do all of those things. During, we're super aware. That's when you say when. You say, what's important now, refocus and go. If you need to shift that. So we're focused, composed. We don't want to be doing cue words and being like, wait, Chris said foot down during race. And then that's not going to be good, right? If we're doing that during race. Because that's going to be more analyze, evaluate, and reflect. So we don't want to do that either. We don't want to be like, well, that didn't work. Let's try something else. That's not what we want to do during the race. In the race, we want to be aware if we're losing track, refocus, and then if we get back on track, and then become aware that we're off track, and then boom, come back in. So we want to be able to shift back and forth in that. So that's what timing matters. So it's not something that we can just come in today and be like, hey, I'm done. So we need to really think about what we're thinking about now during the off season, and think about what you're doing in your training. If you're going through, a hard interval, what are we saying to ourselves that works? What are we saying to ourselves that doesn't work? And then using those same phrases when it matters. Because when our attention's off in the race, chances are our attention is going to be off for a little while unless we get it back in, right? At the moment, unless something happens. and we're like, boom, I need to get back in the moment. Because if our attention is going off, we can't control that, and you can't control the attention. So if we go to that last piece, and that's another. It's kind of like the WIN principle. So that's the being aware, interrupt, and replace. And so we have to have that. We have to create an awareness, right? That's what we're doing tonight. And by thinking about your thoughts, thinking about your cognition, thinking about all that that's going on during the race, during your training. So when you have those counterproductive thoughts, I guess it's not here now. So you, didn't know if it would work. So when you have those counterproductive thoughts, you can replace that. So we're saying we're aware that we're having counterproductive thoughts. So we need to replace it, right? We have a P3 statement or a Q statement. So then we insert it because this process is happening so fast. And there's theories behind this, and it's well researched, and these guys, but it's pretty well understood. We don't know for sure, right? We can't understand our thoughts and measure that. And they have a process behind it, but understanding that if we can interrupt these thoughts and then insert, it's going to happen quicker because this process is happening very fast. So we need to be able to insert it as fast as we can and develop that awareness. So if we're aware, we interrupt and then replace air, right? Awareness, interrupting, and replace.
It's like training a dog.
Well, that's behavior, right? Your behavior change.
When there's bad behavior, you distract and redirect.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. So I mean, you're just inserting a new thing, and it's like any type of behavior change is like that. Yes. So that's how we need to be aware of our thoughts because behavior change is hard. So developing that awareness and then thinking like, how can I apply this? That's going to be the actual insert, right? And then you guys don't have this, but I wanted to introduce this because I want to offer you guys this, and this is the goal setting plan that I have. So the goal setting process that I have, it's pretty in depth. So and if you want, we can sit down and be like, hey, let's go into an actual conversation here and carve out some goals for you guys. Because this is going to be like, if you tell somebody your goal, right? Maybe you have a goal, and how do you get there though? Like you have the goal, but do you have a plan? So this process is more like a phone. It's like a GPS phone on your phone. If you put a navigation system in, it tells you exactly how you're going to get to your goal. So you might have a goal of winning. Maybe you have a goal of the state time trial, 40K of 55 minutes, right? And then maybe you want to get that this year. So how are you going to get there? And that's the process, right? And that's the actual map. So we need to understand how we're going to get there. And that's what I'd like to do for you all, if you guys would like to. So anybody who wants to do it, I've got a sign-up sheet over there. Feel free. If you don't want to do it now, contact me later. That's all I have. Yeah. So you guys have any questions?
I do, Chris. So, like, I see, like, how this applies. Like we said, we don't really train it, but during a race, like, because there's a kind, like, what you need to do. Like, I need to be up there. I need to be in the front. I need to mark the break. I need to be ready for the sprint. But to applying this while you're training, you know what I mean? Like, maybe you've got a coach, or you're working on a plan. You know what your intervals are for that day, but you just go out and you do them. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's not really a whole lot of thought to me, or I don't put a whole lot of thought in it. But that's what
Yeah, and that's a good question because it's like bike racing inherently. There's a lot of thought that goes on because it's like a chess match, and you're at like 180, 190 beats per minute, right? So there's all this going on, but it's more so when you're having those counterproductive thoughts because it's like that higher level thinking. You're probably going to be, if you're able to do that, you're probably not having counterproductive thoughts. So if we're having that thinking, we probably don't need to insert our keywords because we are aware and focused and being in the moment and present, right?
Right.
It's when we're getting distracted off to the left and or off to the right and veering into oncoming traffic. That's when we're going to say, oh, boom, interrupt, and then come back on. But yeah, that's a good question because I think it would come back to that present moment focus.
Yeah, because to me, like when I get to the race, like you've done the work, right?
Mm-hmm.
There, you can't change what your fitness is in the race, but this can have a pretty big impact. You know, this can have a huge impact. This is something if you hadn't applied it during the race,
Yeah.
like even with the same fitness.
Yeah, well, say you got in a crash, same race.
Right.
Like, what are your thoughts?
He's saying
Run over the finish line.
Run across the finish line.
Brian's a good case study in that.
No, but I mean, like, but
Somebody probably ought to not.
I know I've crashed twice in the same race. The first time I was like, fluke. And then the second time, because I'm optimistic, right? Like, the second time I'm like, maybe that wasn't a chance.
Two's a coincidence, three's causation.
All right, I'll write that down.
Was it in the same corner?
No.
Oh, okay.
Okay, well then.
But it was the break last corner, sitting second wheel.
Oh no.
Bad day. And I broke my bike in half. It was awful. But we won't get into details. That was expensive. That was these scars over here. Yeah. Any other questions, though? You guys all have awareness now?
Well, how do you train to interrupt stuff for a race situation?
So you have to do that in your training. So that's a good question. So doing deliberate breathing, right? We only did a quick introduction. So when our thoughts are like getting away from us during deliberate breathing, let's say we're doing that to train it. So focus is a skill, and that's what we need to treat it as. Because focus isn't like you have it or you don't. Focus is we have to actually apply that. So thinking about deliberate breathing. So thinking about your counting in deliberate breathing, but then you might be doing deliberate breathing for 5 minutes, and then during that course of that 5 minutes, your thoughts are going to go to places like they're going down the train tracks, right? But we're like, wait, I was doing deliberate breathing, and then that's the repetition. It's coming back. So training that focus and training that muscle to come back. And recognizing that it doesn't matter how long it takes during that process, it's just the coming back to the moment. So it doesn't matter necessarily like, and that's the same principle of like mindfulness meditation is like you have a center and you're gravitating towards that and developing awareness because we all have the mind that races, right? It goes a million miles an hour sometimes, but sometimes we can make it still. And that stillness is coming back to the present moments and coming back to that count, and that's the repetition. So like if you're thinking about lifting weights or doing intervals, that's 1 rep. That's 2 reps, like coming back to that. So it's not necessarily focusing on the present, like focusing on the count. It's when it drifts off, and then are you able to gradually come back to it? And that's where it gets confusing. There's a lot of people like, oh man, I'm not good at this. And we're doing deliberate breathing. It's like, I suck at this. But if we can come back to that moment, and that's where we can build that repetition, build that skill, build that awareness of our focus. That's a good question.
So letting the brain go wherever, but it's to focus on bringing it back.
You want to be focused, but you don't. So you don't want to have the intention.
Well, I'm talking about the practicing.
Right. So you don't want to have the intention of wandering because that's going to happen naturally.
Right.
So you want to be focused presently on the counting, and then your mind will wander. When it does,
right.
You come back to the counting gradually, not like forcefully. Like, oh man, that sucked. Why did I do that?
Right.
You want to come back like in that moment. Yeah. So it's very nuanced on that. Yeah. That's one I like is like coming back to it. Anybody else?
More of a comment than a question.
Lingering thoughts.
I think a lot of it has to do with the concept of self-fulfilling prophecy. You show up for a race and you're like, I haven't been riding enough lately, and I don't know, this weather's not looking good, I don't have enough teammates.
Mm-hmm.
Your mind has a way of making that result actualize.
And then you're like,
Sure.
see, I knew it was going to happen.
Exactly. Right. You show up and you're like, I've been crushing these intervals, I got a strong teammate, I know this course well, I feel great.
Yeah.
Your mind is a way of making that result.
Yeah.
It's kind of like locus of control,
Exactly.
internal perspective.
Yeah.
By choosing the internal,
Yeah.
I'm in control here. I know what I'm doing. Training's good. Go do it.
Yeah. Same thing. It's the optimism versus pessimism, and that would be the the actual, and then controlling and uncontrollable. Yeah. So those are like the foundational pieces that but the growth mindset saying that, when you do have that self-fulfilling prophecy, understanding that that's not necessarily the case. Because if you believe in self-fulfilling prophecy and believing that like your thoughts are just going to manifest into thoughts, and you're like, then it's going to be that, so we have to we need to remove that self-fulfilling prophecy because it doesn't really give us that, because I think we all inherently know that self-fulfilling prophecy can be good, but it can be not productive.
Is there a way for us to apply this to the groupthink of a team mentality?
Yes. So doing an optimistic thinking. So asking somebody, hey, what's something that went well today? So doing the same thing on an individual basis. And that's how you spread joy. Because that's going to be the next level. Because and now it's going to be you're going to take it a step further because you're asking somebody else, you're getting something from it too. Because you're identifying from that. So when I go to work on Monday morning, I ask somebody like, hey, what's something good that happened this past weekend for you? Not just like, hey, how was your weekend? Because they're going to say, it was good. And then we're going to walk away, right? But if you say, hey, what's something good that happened this weekend? Now I'm getting that, and now we're building that conversation. I'm getting to know this person. I'm building a connection, relationship, rapport. But you're changing the climate and the culture of the building, of wherever you are, of the team, right?
You're going to watch the fear go across their eyes in that first millisecond of, how do I answer that?
But then you make them think.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
I can't just say fine.
Yeah. Well, they usually identify, because people naturally do, and I shouldn't say naturally, but people typically do fun things on the weekend, right? Even maybe it's just watching, hanging out, but that's the little things that we do, right? We need that rest and recovery, rejuvenation. Yeah. Because I'll say, man, it was great. I rested. I got 8 hours of sleep. That was great.
Little things.
Yeah, little things, man. That's what I'm talking about. Boom, boom, boom. You just list them all off, and then well, he's got a lot of good things going on. Wow. Yeah. But another piece on that is when you have a gratitude emotion with deliberate breathing, when you deliberately breathe and then layer it with gratitude, layer it with Happy Gilmore, right? Your happy place. You layer that, you go to the beach, with your family when you're there. But it's Happy Gilmore had some insightful stuff. Right? Just tap it in, right? Those are the key words coming back, full circle. And then, so going to your happy place, going to those places, that's going to be it's actually going to work. And so you're deliberate breathing, doing all those things, that's where you're going. Changing the culture.
Good stuff.
That was good. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah. I'll have to get you guys signed up for the goal setting because that's even good. The goal setting, I think, is a crucial, important part of the whole process. Goal setting is probably the most important. It's the biggest takeaway. Because this is all I'm going to grab it up here and then put it over here, right? The goal setting is tangible.
Yep.
Is it?
And
Nice.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for your time.
Yeah.
I appreciate you guys. Yeah, thanks for attending. I'll have to get on the people who said they were going to attend and didn't show up.
Lindy's the only one.
Oh.
He probably will. Flat tire.
I thought he did. It was the other
Brain.
Brian. Brain training. Brian training.
I mean, Ben.
She hasn't told.
Does anybody want something to drink? Please.
Chris, I'm interested in the goal setting, but
Yes.
Me too. Obviously.
You want to? Yeah.
We do it by email or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I can just contact you on Facebook.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, right now.
I got an 8-year-old.
And then
Cameras are dry.
availability too. Because this probably have to carve out about. And think of a goal. I'll probably send you some homework to do initially, just like thinking of a goal. And I'll give you some guidelines as far as what it is and what
that's why singing is good for you.
what it could be and possibly. Because the process is really motivating to get out. And
Negativity only breeds negativity. I don't need that kind of stuff in my life.
Breathe.
Well, yeah.
We're giant up over there.
I don't need anything. I see a sales sign and I'm like, ooh, what is it? Okay, did you listen to Sarah Rose
That's
when I
why-
talked about skin suits? I know, and
Sleep.
I'm like, man, I guess I gotta get a skin suit.
What they say about skin suits?
What was the number? Like 10 watts? It was like 10 watts.
10 watts.
I'm like, shit.
Free watch for fun.
And always so cheap.
Yeah,
Yeah, there was,
yeah.
there was a whole Jules Smith Trainer Road podcast.
This one is going to
I
be
have
cheap.
listened to some of
There
them.
was a whole one about like
This one,
arrow.
the watt savings
Like-
there is going to be cheap.
I mean, they were talking about like
Shaving?
how mountain bikers like
Yeah,
attach
that's
their
gonna be
number
cheap.
plates. And I'm like, it's like a barn door on the front of your bike.
Right. Right.
Hi. How are you?
I'm proud of these.
Which one is that one? Well, that's the laser cut one. That's why I can tell it. Because it's labeled cut. It's the better.
Lasers, is that you?
So it's the same.
You can do both. I got you. Yeah.
Whatever.
If there was somebody we know we had somebody be interested in a race for Maplewood, so would you be interested?
Well, he knows what his problem is. Just look different.
She would benefit a lot.
Yeah.
Good to see you, David.
You know what?
Yes.
Yeah.
My life just like calmed me down anytime someone showed up.
I think that would probably.
Is just fear or is it a little bit of both?
I think
He's not sure if he's going to
fear, probably.
Yeah.
I've never made it to
Like just a lack of confidence in general.
Yeah, so I started
But has like all
this
kinds
way
of
first,
potential. She has a lot more like
Over here, like,
skills and speed and skill.
Yeah.
She has no idea that long.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first time she's had 2 bad crashes.
Well, Joey got some
Crashes both times. Three
really
broken
Some of
bones
this was
this
like
time.
a shot to.
Yeah. Straight from Costa Rica.
I think you.
British accent.
Yeah.
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 Jimmy's culture.
She's got big goals.
And Barry said.
And like cycling is like the most important thing in her life, and so when it doesn't go well, yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
Fran.
Does she fix bikes?
No, oh, that's Fran from Velofix,
Okay.
I think, right?
I don't
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, there's another Fran, yeah.
They're different people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but she just has trouble recovering from setbacks.
Yeah. I don't think focusing on the positive, like
Yeah.
just realizing the potential, like just knowing that she should be there.
She ended like, it's normal, it's normal that you do your FTP, your FTP is fine.
But she's got the work ethic, like she does the 3-hour trail rides, and so she's got, that part of it.
Oh, yeah, I think she'd get a lot of that.
I mean, if you're interested in
I'll put her in touch.
yeah, she's just super cool, fun to talk to.
Okay, so
Just
three of
listen
us.
to her accent if nothing else is fun.
Right. Except when you ride with her, you think you're the witch.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I'm always like, what?
You pick somebody every single
And
different
then
time.
keep shouting.
Really trace
But you don't know that you're faster.
Yeah. You don't even get on me for like those Z-packs.
And porridge.
Yeah, she's like,
Bye, David.
good to see you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Oh.
Let's see.
Like when I
See
got
ya.
my concussion,
Yeah.
Both of us were like light bulb.
I have one
Yeah.
of my friends calling Zofran for audio.
Okay.
I do too.
Otherwise,
You guys have a good week?
No.
Sorry for the timing.
Yeah. Well, my car like broke down on the side of the road while I was driving a student to school on Wednesday. Had to get it towed and
That is, yeah.
had to find somebody else to drive the kid to school.
That's,
And then I found out like my car was like engine, so I'm putting in it. So like now we're unexpectedly partial.
yeah.
So
No.
it's a little stressful.
Yeah.
But if that's the worst of our problems,
Yeah.
then we're doing pretty darn
Yeah,
good,
it's just
right?
a car.
Like, you know, it's
Yeah.
in the
I
grand
don't
scheme of things,
Yep.
like,
It'll be fun.
I'm just surrounded by them.
we get a new car.
You guys got a new car?
Not yet. We will. That's probably tomorrow.
No.
Yeah.
I got to use my boss's
Wow.
phone.
Insurance people
She
too.
adjusted to my
They
office
all
phone
feed off each
for
other.
research delay for like a flat tire. She's like, it's funny, they don't even look. Like, you just call and give them the number, blah, blah, blah. And then I think, they're like, hey, cool, do you really mean that anybody can use your
We are.
Because I
That's the
just
one.
need it
You
right
went to the
now.
other one and they
Yeah,
use.
it's like, it's a good
They won't give you, in my rule, things either work or they don't work.
I called the others. There's one other social worker in our school district. Yeah.
Yeah.
But she's like, oh, I'm like doing this, I'm doing this.
And then we'll try
This
this.
girl had to sit in my car.
No.
And I didn't know her. Like, the
Well, that
juvenile
is
officer
actually-
called me and was like, this girl's on probation and she missed the bus and she really needs to get to
Well,
school.
it's the
My
way
head works
insurance
different.
works too, because I worked with like Express Scripts
Middle
and
school.
Magellan.
Yeah, so I was like, oh, you don't know me, but you're supposed to get in my car. And then, like,
We're gonna
this
make
doesn't
you go
happen
through
to me
these other
normally.
things.
Trust me,
It's
it's
cheaper.
80%. Maybe this will work.
Right.
If it doesn't, then we'll go on.
You need to try these 3 other drugs that we've stopped using for the past 20 years.
Yeah, I'm still trying to get to the stockpile. So.
I don't know why they do that.
Yeah.
No, I
One piece.
Did you have to, were you guys off on Monday?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was a short week anyway.
someone today. I think it was
I don't even know
Express.
what it is.
Oh, yeah.
And I was just like,
Feel free to bash my old
I was just like, I know it's not you, but
but
I'm on the phone with you
Yeah.
right now because you, an insurance company, are telling
So how do
me,
you,
a medical
do you have
professional,
classes
what
for
is
the
better
HD
for my
program?
patient.
So
And you're
Or the online?
degree program.
Oh.
Like the
Or
last,
next
like,
week.
kind of experience. Like,
Send
you know,
it to me and
coding
I'll fill it
and
out.
stuff like that.
Do you have to write like a dissertation?
So it is and it isn't. So I'm doing it.
Why did they
doing
need
it
that
more
multi-row
thorough,
check?
so I'm working towards like a-
So they don't die.
We're trying to keep this person from dying.
Pass.
It's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, that's usually a good
Why did they
get
Right.
this
1
medication?
hour
Death.
certified.
They don't have it, they will die.
Yeah, a little while. It's a dark race.
It's a lot of hours.
Well, not compared to what you got.
You gotta
Oh,
get a
well, I mean,
10,000?
I have,
Yeah, I
actually.
guess I
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
I've used it once for the
I
road
think I
race
blocked
last
that
year.
period.
Nice.
Are you nervous about learning?
Doing like practicum.
No, I just
You'll
don't
see.
really. In Chris,
But I could do like 2,000 hours like at my job. I just had to
because I'm not pulling
supervisor and process
off
it.
the
Like,
front for the
basically.
entire
So,
True.
So
but I
then
did,
the
yeah, I had
road races are
practicum
much
during grad
lower.
school. Yeah, that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the most challenging part. Is
I'm
just
just a
That's why. That's why
finding the
it's
time to
fresh.
get on hours.
We didn't do any
Yeah.
work.
Oh, yeah, that was
Every time we got on the front,
completely.
they were slowing it down again.
I did not need.
27 miles an hour, hey? Let's do 23.
Yeah.
Okay, why?
Yours are
We'll take
Arrow
care
is
of it.
going to be when I-
We'll take care of it.
specialized. ABC did what? They do tunnel cars.
Oh, do they?
Really.
Special. It's on YouTube.
You guys have another presentation tomorrow morning?
There's not.
They're pre-shift meeting.
The pep talk Saturday morning.